Hi friends, welcome back to Brilliant Blue Reviews. My name is Heather and I actually have a book review for you today. I'm so sorry it's been so long since I have done a book review on this channel. I've had a very difficult time reading the last few months. I have read some things which I talked about in my last video where I gave you my halfway through 2025, first 6 months of 2025 reading wrap up. If you haven't watched that video, be sure to go back and watch it. I have seen a lot of movies. There's been a lot of movie reviews on my channel if you enjoy those, but this is the first full book review I've done in a while. I just finished this book just now. I read like the last, probably 10 chapters just now today. It's a 14-day book and I had it for exactly 14 days. It is due back today and there are people waiting for it, so I had to finish it today. I'm going to return it to the library and I already have 2 more books on hold that I'm going to be picking up and reading next. So this is One Final Turn by Ashley Weaver. It is the, I think it's 5th, let me double check. Yes, 5th and final book in the Electra McDonnell series. Talked about this before, but Ashley Weaver, the author, who is a librarian, by the way, she works in library services. It says now, her bio changed a little bit from the last time I read it. It says now that she works as an elementary and middle school librarian, a job which I have also held, at least in a substitute capacity. I've worked as an elementary, middle school, and high school librarian quite a few times in our school district. But before that, it said that she worked like for a public library system. So she's switched over a little bit, but she's a big book lover. And she has written 2 full series now. The Electra McDonnell series, this one, and previously she wrote the Amory Ames mystery series, which was Milo and Amory Ames, who were a married couple. Those books were set in the 1930s and took place in England, Europe. There was one book that was in New York City, kind of traveled around. The Electra McDonnell series, which I will say, if I have to pick one over the other, I would pick the Electra McDonnell series as my favorite. And this is the series that I started reading first, even though she wrote this series second. So she wrote the Amory Ames mystery series, which is longer. That one has more books. She wrote that series first, but I did not discover that series until after I had started this series. I had read the first 2 or 3 books in this series, and then I had caught up with what was published. So then I really was enjoying them and I wanted to read something else. And I noticed in the stacks at the library that Ashley Weaver, the author, had a whole nother series, the Amory Ames series. So I read the entire Amory Ames series, and for a while I was overlapping because she continued to publish, she published like the 3rd, 4th, and 5th books. And this is the last one. So in the meantime, before I read this, I had completely finished the entire Amory Ames mystery series, which I liked very much. I gave most of those books 4 or 5 stars, I think all of them. I think there was one I gave 3 stars to. And then this series I have now completed. The Electra McDonnell series, of which this is the 5th and final book, is a series set based in London for the most part during World War II, just prior to the war starting and up until like a year or 2 into World War II. And it's based around, the main character is Electra McDonnell, and she is a safecracker, and she picks locks. I don't know what you would call it. She's a lockpick. Is that a thing? And she has a very interesting backstory. She lives with her uncle, Mick McDonnell, and her 2 cousins, Toby and Colm, who are Mick's sons. So Mick is a widower, and Electra's parents are both dead. And there's a whole big backstory with her parents. Her father was murdered, and the presumption was that her mother killed her father. And she was in prison for killing her father when Electra was born, because she was actually pregnant with Electra when she got sent to prison for murdering her husband. Her uncle Mick then took her in. Her mother actually died of influenza in prison, so she was orphaned. And so her Uncle Mick took her in. And then Nacy is like the housekeeper who kind of took on a motherly role and helped raise these 3 kids, Mick's 2 sons and Electra, and they all grew up together. And they were all lockpick people. They all picked locks. Her uncle was a locksmith, and so he did legitimate locksmith work too. But he and the 3 kids Electra and her two cousins, Toby and Colm, had all learned how to pick locks and break into safes and all of this stuff. And they were making a pretty good living with a combined legitimate locksmithing business and stealing stuff. So they were criminals, actually, at the beginning of the series. And she gets caught. She and her Uncle Mick get caught in the first book by a guy in the British military, Gabriel Ramsey, who's the other main character, and becomes Electra's main love interest. They get caught by him, and the reason he catches them is because he wants to hire them to work for the British government to help them on certain cases where they need someone who can pick locks and break into safes to get information about the Germans' plans and things like that. So throughout the different 5 books, there's always some kind of case like that where they need Electra and sometimes her Uncle Mick's skills to help them with something for the war effort. So I really liked that aspect of it. I'm very interested in British history. I'm very interested in the World War II period. And so this series was an absolute delight for me from that standpoint. Kind of tense. It was almost like a thriller in most of the cases because, you know, what they had to do was always very exciting and kind of like a spy novel type thing. And then there was this ongoing sexual and romantic tension between Electra, who they also called Ellie, and Major Ramsey. And then she also had another guy in her life, Felix, who was also doing something clandestine, possibly for the government, it turned out. His whole thing ended up being kind of like a code breaking thing, but he actually was in the war for a little bit and lost a leg. So that was kind of significant. And then her cousin Toby, also in the series, was fighting in the war and went missing. He was a prisoner of war or missing in action. And so that becomes a whole overarching plot. So there's kind of a lot going on. There's the cases she works for the government with. There's the tension between her romantic stuff going on with her and Major Ramsey. There's like her family. There's the fact that her cousin is missing. And there's the fact that she has this friendship/relationship thing going with Felix, and what is he doing? So there's a lot going on in these stories. They're very quick reads for me because they're really interesting and there's really a lot going on. It's a really neat mix of action and intrigue and romance and all sorts of stuff. I really, really liked these books. I loved this whole series, and this last one was, I'm not sure if it was my favorite, but I really loved it, and I'm giving it 5 stars. So I'm giving 5 stars to One Final Turn by Ashley Weaver, the 5th and final book in the Electra McDonnell series. I'm kind of sad that it's over because I really, really liked this series, but this book was terrific. It was a very good end to the series, and I'm really happy with how she wrapped everything up. And she did a very good job of actually wrapping everything up. She didn't leave any really unanswered questions or loose ends or anything like that. And everybody, to some extent, kind of got a happy ending, which was really nice. It turned out pretty well for like all the characters. Just the book itself, though, the plot of this one was really cool. It actually almost entirely takes place in Lisbon, Portugal, where she and Captain Archie Blandings, who's another character, and Major Ramsey travel to Lisbon. They learn that there's some kind of route that prisoners of war are using to escape the Germans and get to Portugal, which was neutral during World War II. So when they go there, like, she's really surprised. Portugal and Lisbon is like alive and the lights are on, and it's nothing like London where they have to, everything's blacked out at night and there's still people going out dancing and, going to shows and restaurants and everything. And she actually really enjoys getting to be in Lisbon and be a tourist, and they talk a lot about Lisbon and some of the sites that are there. So that was kind of neat. Portugal and Lisbon are actually on my own personal list of someplace I'd like to visit sometime. I've never been. And that whole aspect of it was kind of cool. And then like the case they were working on, trying to get this information about this secret route that the POWs were using, was very interesting. In the midst of that, they had gotten word or had intelligence that her cousin Toby might have escaped the Germans and be on his way there. So that was a big motivating factor for her. So the story itself and the plot of this book was really interesting and intriguing and exciting and had a lot going for it. I didn't mind. I mean, I love London. I had lived in London in university, and I absolutely love London. I've been back several times since then. And it's my favorite city in the world. And so you'd think I would be a little disappointed that the book didn't take place in London like the other ones did, but I really wasn't, because the whole aspect of it being in Lisbon and everything was also really cool. And then just the plot and the character development and everything in this was really, really great. Something very significant happens with her and Ramsey in this book, and I loved that whole aspect of it too. So I really loved this book. I definitely would give One Final Turn, no hesitation at all, 5 stars by Ashley Weaver. I'm really excited to see what she does next. I have, like I said, enjoyed both of her series of books that she's written now, and I'm wondering if she's going to write something else in the future. This book just came out. I mean, this was just published here a few weeks ago. It's a brand new book, so it might be a little while before we see something else come from Ashley Weaver as an author, but I'm excited to see what she does next, although it's going to be tough to top this series. This checked all the boxes for me of what I like in a novel. So this is probably one of my favorite series that I've ever read. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video and my review of One Final Turn by Ashley Weaver. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give me a thumbs up down below, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming book reviews. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time.